Hey there, fellow explorer. Ready to dive deep into some seriously profound ideas?
Always up for a challenge.
Okay, good. Because today we're taking on divine love and wisdom.
A book that's well,
Not exactly light reading.
yeah, you could say that. But it's definitely one that promises to shift your perspective.
For sure. Think dense philosophical concepts about
God, creation, good versus evil.
and how the spiritual and natural worlds intertwine.
It's one of those books that you really have to wrestle with
Absolutely. And that's exactly why we're here.
to break it down.
Unpack these really intricate ideas and make them a bit more accessible and hopefully engaging for everyone.
We want to make sure that everyone can grasp these concepts, even if they're not, theologians or philosophers.
Right. We're on a mission to unearth those hidden gems of insight that might just change how you see the world around you.
And maybe even change how you see yourself.
That's a great point. So where do we even begin with a book as complex as this?
Well, I think the best place to start is with the very nature of the divine itself.
Okay, so what is God?
Exactly. And what's so fascinating here is how this book throws out that traditional image of a distant, unknowable God.
Like the old man in the sky.
Right, and it presents a totally different perspective, a unified being of substance and form.
Ooh, that's intriguing.
What?
You mean it's not just some vague force out there? How does it actually define God?
It gets really specific. It describes God as being both divine love, which is the substance,
Okay.
and divine wisdom, which is the form.
So two distinct aspects.
Yes, but here's the key. They exist inseparably as one.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Can you give me an example to make it a bit clearer?
Sure. Imagine the sun.
Okay.
You can't have the heat of the sun without its light. Right.
Makes sense.
They're distinct, but they always go together.
Inseparable.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
the same with divine love and divine wisdom.
You can't have one without the other.
They're two sides of the same coin, eternally interwoven.
So it's this unified force of love and wisdom that makes up the divine.
That's the idea.
But how does that actually play out in the world around us? Does the book connect this concept to our everyday lives?
It absolutely does, and this is where it gets really interesting. The book argues that this divine unity, this perfect balance of love and wisdom, isn't just some abstract idea. It's actually mirrored throughout creation.
So it's like this blueprint.
Yeah, it's like a universal principle that we see reflected everywhere.
So if we're paying attention,
If we know where to look.
we can see this divine unity playing out all around us.
Exactly. And one of the most mind-blowing examples the book gives is this concept of how we receive life itself.
Oh, interesting. So how does it explain that?
Get this. It claims that God is the sole source of life, and all of us, angels and humans alike, are simply recipients of that life.
Whoa, hold on. So you're saying that we don't actually possess life ourselves? It's something that's given to us.
That's what the book argues.
That's a pretty radical idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always thought of life as something that's inherent. Like it's just part of who we are.
But the book presents a different perspective.
So how does it explain that? I mean, if we don't have life inherently, where does it come from?
Well, the book uses a really simple analogy to explain it.
Okay, I love analogies.
Think of a seed.
Okay.
A seed contains the potential for life, right?
Yeah.
But it can't actually grow and flourish without things outside of itself.
Like sunlight,
Water, the right soil.
the right nutrients.
Exactly. So in the same way, humans are like vessels for life, but the life itself originates from the divine.
So we're like those seeds, and we need that divine spark to really come alive.
It's like we're given this incredible gift, this spark of life, and it's up to us to nurture it, to help it grow.
And to create something beautiful with it.
To make the most of it.
Absolutely. So if God is the source of life, and we're just recipients of that life, does that mean that we're all connected in some way?
That's one of the implications of this idea, that we're all part of this web of life that originates from the divine.
It's like a universal family tree.
And if we trace our lineage back far enough, we all come from the same source.
That's a powerful image.
It is. It changes how you look at the world, doesn't it?
Yeah. It kind of makes you feel a sense of responsibility for each other. Like,
Yeah.
we're all in this together.
It challenges us to think beyond our individual needs and consider the well-being of the whole.
To see ourselves as part of a larger story.
And to recognize the sacredness of life itself.
Speaking of the world around us, this book also talks about God being everywhere,
Yes. Omnipresent.
but not confined by physical space.
Right. Which seems contradictory, right?
Yeah, it's like, how can God be everywhere if God isn't limited by space?
It's mind-bending. But the book uses an analogy that actually helps to clarify this.
Okay, I'm all about the analogies. Lay it on me.
Think of a mirror.
All right.
You see a reflection in the mirror, but the mirror itself isn't the thing being reflected.
Right? It's just showing you what's there.
Exactly. So, in the same way, the divine is reflected in all of creation, but it's not limited by physical space.
It's like this all-encompassing presence.
It permeates everything, but isn't confined by the laws of physics as we understand them.
So we're not just limited by what we can see and touch.
There's a whole other dimension of reality out there, a spiritual dimension that we can tap into.
But how do we even begin to access it? I mean, it sounds so abstract and mysterious.
It's definitely not easy, but the book offers some clues.
Okay, like what?
Well, for starters, it reminds us that we're created in the image of the divine.
So we're not just random accidents.
We have this spark of divinity within us.
That's a powerful image.
It is. It suggests that we have the potential to connect with that divine presence, to experience that spiritual dimension.
Okay, but how? Where do we even begin?
That's a question we'll continue to explore as we dive deeper into this book.
All right, I'm ready for the next layer.
But I think this is a good place to pause for now.
Take a breath. Let these ideas sink in a little bit.
Exactly. We've covered a lot of ground already.
But this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to uncover in divine love and wisdom.
And I can't wait to dive back in with you next time.
We'll pick up where we left off and explore even more mind-bending concepts.
Get ready for a wild ride.
It's going to be an adventure.
I can't wait.
Me neither. All right, we're back and ready to dive even deeper into divine love and wisdom.
It's like opening up a treasure chest, isn't it?
Every page is packed with so much insight.
So much to unpack.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Well, remember those 3 degrees of the human mind we talked about?
Natural, spiritual, and celestial.
Exactly. The book goes even deeper, explaining how those 3 degrees actually work within us.
Okay, this is where it gets really personal, right? Like, how do these different degrees show up in our daily experiences?
It's about understanding the dynamics of our own minds, the different levels of awareness that are operating within us.
Like we're peeling back the layers of an onion.
It's more like we're exploring the different rooms in a house, each one with its own purpose and atmosphere.
I like that analogy.
So the book describes the natural mind as the outermost layer of our being.
It's like the foundation.
And it's also the container for those higher spiritual degrees.
So it's like our natural mind is this shell, this protective barrier that surrounds those deeper levels of ourselves.
That's a great way to put it, but here's where things get a little tricky.
Uh-oh, what do you mean?
Well, the book says that if those higher degrees, the spiritual and celestial minds, aren't open and active, the natural mind can actually work against them.
Wait, you mean our own minds can sabotage our spiritual growth?
It's like having all the ingredients for a delicious meal, but then refusing to combine them properly.
So it's not enough to just have those higher levels within us. We have to cultivate them, nurture them.
And allow them to guide our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
So how do we do that? How do we stop our natural minds from getting in the way?
That's where things get really interesting. The book uses this image of a spiral to describe this dynamic.
Okay, I love visuals. Tell me more.
So it explains that the natural mind, with all its complexities and anxieties, actually spirals downward.
Downward. Like a drain.
While the spiritual mind spirals upward toward greater clarity, peace, and understanding.
So it's like we're being pulled in 2 opposite directions.
We have to make a conscious effort to choose the upward path,
To resist that downward pull.
to elevate our thinking, to open ourselves to those higher influences.
So how do we do that? How do we break free from that downward spiral?
Well, the book suggests that it starts with understanding the role of human rationality and liberty.
Okay, remind me, what are those again?
Rationality is our ability to understand, to reason, to think critically.
And liberty is our free will, right? Our ability to make choices.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that while these are gifts from God, they can also be misused.
So it's not enough to just have a good mind or the ability to choose. We have to use those gifts wisely.
And here's a really mind-blowing detail. The book points out that even evil spirits possess rationality and liberty.
Wait, you're telling me that demons can think for themselves and make choices?
That's what the book suggests.
But if they can understand spiritual truths, why do they choose to do evil?
That's a question that goes to the very heart of the nature of evil.
It's a mystery. So how does the book explain it?
Well, it suggests that evil spirits use their understanding and free will to serve their own selfish desires, rather than to align themselves with the divine purpose.
So it's like a distortion, A corruption of their true potential.
It's like using a powerful tool for destructive purposes.
A hammer used to break things instead of build them.
That's a great analogy. And the book goes on to explore the consequences of misusing these faculties.
Okay, like what happens when we use our minds and our freedom for evil purposes?
Well, for starters, it creates this internal disharmony.
Like a war going on inside of us.
And it also affects our relationships with others.
It creates conflict and separation.
Exactly. And the book goes even further, suggesting that these ingrained evils and the resulting false beliefs can actually be passed down through generations.
Whoa, you're saying that we're not just dealing with our own choices, but we're also carrying the weight of our ancestors' actions?
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? But it also highlights the interconnectedness of humanity, how we're all part of this larger story.
It's like we're all swimming in the same ocean, and the choices we make create ripples that affect everyone.
And those ripples can last for generations.
Okay, that's a lot to process.
Right.
So how do we break free from this cycle? How do we cleanse ourselves of those inherited evils and false beliefs?
That's a question that goes to the very heart of spiritual growth and transformation.
And I have a feeling this book has some answers.
It does, but we'll have to save those for our next deep dive.
All right. I'm on the edge of my seat. Can't wait to hear more.
I can't wait to share them with you.
Okay, I'm ready to jump back into divine love and wisdom.
It's like we're explorers charting unknown territory.
Every time I think I've grasped a concept,
It opens up a whole new dimension of understanding.
it's like those Russian nesting dolls,
You keep opening one layer to reveal another.
and there's always another layer underneath.
It's a journey of infinite discovery.
And speaking of discovery, one of the things that's really struck me about this book is how it addresses the problem of evil.
It doesn't shy away from the tough questions.
Yeah, like if God is all-loving and all-powerful,
Why is there so much suffering in the world?
it's a question that's haunted humanity for centuries.
And there are no easy answers.
So what does this book have to say about it?
Well, it starts by challenging some of our basic assumptions about where evil comes from.
Okay, like what?
Well, a lot of people believe that God created evil.
Like as a test or a punishment?
Right. But this book offers a different perspective.
So where does evil come from, according to this book?
It suggests that evil isn't something that God created, but rather something that emerges as a consequence of human free will.
So we have the freedom to choose,
But sometimes we choose poorly,
and those choices have consequences.
not only for ourselves, but for the world around us.
It's like we're all connected by these invisible threads.
And when one thread gets pulled out of place,
It affects the whole tapestry.
exactly. So the book emphasizes that when we choose to act against divine order, whether it's through selfishness or greed or hatred,
Or any other form of evil.
we create this spiritual imbalance that ripples out and affects the entire web of creation.
So what can we do about it? How do we stop those negative ripples from spreading?
The book suggests that the first step is to recognize our own role in creating those ripples
To take responsibility for our choices.
and to start making different choices.
But that's easier said than done, right? I mean, we're human, we make mistakes.
We all fall short.
So how do we get back on track when we've messed up?
The book emphasizes the importance of repentance
Acknowledging our wrongs,
and making amends.
turning away from evil and choosing good.
And it also talks about the importance of seeking forgiveness
From God.
and from those we've harmed,
So it's about humility,
and recognizing that we need help.
that we can't do this alone.
Exactly. The book reminds us that we're not meant to navigate this journey alone.
We need each other.
We need support.
And guidance.
And that's where the idea of community comes in.
Finding our tribe.
Connecting with others who share our values and aspirations
People who can lift us up when we fall.
and challenge us to be better.
So it's like a spiritual support system.
A network of love and encouragement.
That helps us to stay on track.
And the book goes even further, suggesting that this sense of community extends beyond the physical world.
What do you mean?
Well, it talks about the role of angels and spirits in our lives.
So we're not just talking about human connections here.
We're talking about a whole spiritual dimension.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. So the book is saying that we're surrounded by these unseen helpers.
That's the idea.
Right.
It suggests that we all have guardian angels
Who are watching over us,
guiding us,
protecting us.
and also that we can connect with other spirits who have passed on.
Loved ones who are still with us in spirit.
Exactly, and that these connections can be a source of comfort and strength.
So how do we tap into this spiritual support system?
Yeah.
How do we make those connections?
The book emphasizes the importance of prayer
Communicating with the divine,
and meditation,
quieting the mind.
and opening ourselves to those higher influences.
And it also talks about living a life of service to others,
Putting love into action.
contributing to the well-being of the world.
It's about recognizing that we're all part of something much bigger than ourselves
And that our actions have a ripple effect.
that can either create harmony or disharmony.
So it's about making choices that contribute to the greater good.
Choosing love over fear
Wisdom over ignorance.
and service over selfishness.
This book has really challenged me to rethink my whole perspective on life
It's given me a new appreciation for the interconnectedness of everything.
and the power of our choices.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive observers in this cosmic drama,
We're active participants.
co-creators with the divine.
And that's both a tremendous responsibility and an incredible privilege
It's a call to action
to wake up to our true potential.
and to use our gifts to make the world a better place.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive into divine love and wisdom.
It's been an incredible journey.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of profound ideas.
And may your own journey be filled with light and discovery.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep choosing love.